Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcasts and wherever you listen to podcasts. We are everywhere. That way, we can keep talking about what we love, and that's basically gushing over Masaaki Yuasa and his new film. Now, on with the show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Renegade Animation, a very special episode tonight. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And yeah, we finally get to talk about what was probably our most anticipated movie for a couple years now, ever since we saw the first work in progress preview at the 2020 Annecy Film Festival. This is Masaaki Yuasa's probably swan song, Inu-Oh.
Right on. Yeah, this has been on my hype list since 2020 when we got to see those first little clips and the concept art for the characters. So, this is directed by Masaaki Yuasa. It's written by Akiko Nogi. It's composed by Otomo Yoshihide with music collaborations between Avu-chan and Mira Moriyama. And it's animated by Science Saru. It tells the story of a blind biwa player named Tomona, voiced by Mira Moriyama. He travels the land looking for stories to tell of the Heike clan after their fall from the war. He was blinded after an incident brought upon by some government officials looking for a tool of power. Along his journey to becoming a biwa player, he encounters an odd entity in the form of a cursed human who at first has no name, but soon gains one via the performance name of Inu-Oh, voiced by the queen bee herself, Avu-chan. Together, they team up to tell the stories through song and dance of the spirits that were forgotten by the sands of time and the grasping hands of the rising political powers of Japan. So, if you've been reading reviews for this film, you probably have come across William Bibliani's pull quote that is all over the marketing as it describes just the kind of cinematic experience Inu-Oh is. And just like with the other incredible movie of the year, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Inu-Oh spins a multitude of plates. It's a very chaotic movie in some regards because it's got like a political thriller angle. It has a murder mystery subplot. It's a epic stadium rock opera. It's an LGBTQ plus infused friendship story. It's a fairy tale. It's a historical drama with a lot of the details and such taken due to how little information there was for this actual performer. They took liberties with what they wanted to do. It's a story about how the conquest for greed and power are willing to erase from history people that existed. It's a dark film. It can be very depressing, especially at the end of what happens to our two lead characters.
That ending was one that I wasn't expecting, honestly, but it's some powerful stuff.
But it's also a very optimistic movie. There's a good positive angle of just like how their music and performances bring stories of the forgotten to the public, because the whole political thriller angle of it is mostly in the background. It's basically the journey of these two individuals who want to tell the stories of the spirits of people who were forgotten, washed away by the sands of time, especially during the War of the Heike clan, which is very interesting because this film, intentional or not, makes for a great companion piece to Science Saru and Naoko Yamada's adaptation of the Heike story.
I was just about to bring that up. I mentioned in our anime recap that year that really was one of the best things to come out last year. Something about science in that particular era, they just do a really good job of capturing that era of Japanese history.
They have basically carte blanche on doing whatever they want because, this was a studio founded after Masaaki Yuasa released Mind Game, which was a very big critical hit, but it was not a financial hit. So Yuasa kind of went back to doing a bunch of animation gigs at different studios before he got to open up his own studio, and then did a bunch of like freelance work and did a few well-known anime series and a few underrated ones. Like Ping Pong the Animation was probably one of the more well-known titles that the studio released. And then it all just like in the blink of an eye, the duo release of The Night is Short, Walk On Girl. And like a literal month later, Lu Over the Wall was a huge hit. And then it leads us here to this movie, which has a lot of that ambition of Yuasa, combining genres and not fitting into one single box. And I think that is so cool because when you hear about these like big, ambitious either swan song projects or it's like the sophomore project after a director has like a really big hit, there's a little worry of like, oh boy, here we go. Let's see how messy it gets. But Yuasa is one of those directors that finds a way to balance the overall like tone of this film, because there was never a time where this film felt like it had elements that felt out of place.
Even though it's balancing like 50 different plates at once, everything still kind of feels singular in Yuasa's vision.
Yeah, and even with how absurd some of the premises are. Like, Lu Over the Wall is basically the Little Mermaid, but since they originally wanted to do something with vampires before the mermaid concept came into play, they just gave the mermaids vampire-like elements. And yet it works, even though a lot of people try to compare it to Ponyo at the time, which they're both entirely different movies. But with Inu-Oh, what's so impressive about this movie is that while it has all of this going on, all the current political climate changes at the time, and the dread and the hope that it all balances out, it never forgets what the main story is about. It's about Tomona and Inu-Oh and their friendship along the way of two souls that were cursed either by corruption or greed. Like with Tomona, he and his father went into the river to get a sacred weapon or item. And when the dad used it accidentally, it blinded Tomona, and, well, the father died because of it. We'll get into what happens with Inu-Oh a little later into the podcast. But it still focuses on them. It's never quite like a One Punch Man situation where the story's whole purpose is to put One Punch Man in the background. Here, it's Inu-Oh and Tomona telling these new stories of these spirits from the Heiki clan and the samurai that died during the war, and then telling it to the people. And then how the people around Japan change. And I just like the friendship dynamic between Tomona and Inu-Oh. And with a lot of like Yuasa and Science Saru's work, there's a lot of LGBTQ plus elements woven into the story. And you could definitely read some of the things that happen within the movie with those elements in mind, especially with how Tomona decides to like what he wears and what he looks like. And they're definitely giving some thirsty viewers a dose or like a snack per se, like especially during that big final performance, just seeing how Inu-Oh walks and has that cloth around him. And that's another thing about this movie. There's a rock edge to the music to what is really like a very traditional play theatrical like music. But then someone said, I want to make music inspired by Queen and place it in past.
That was probably my favorite element to the music side of things because I knew vaguely based on Viviani's whole quote that, like, oh, okay, so we know this is going to be a rock opera, but like, yeah, no, they really leaned hard into that sort of 70s kind of glam inspired songs. And again, we will talk about Inu-Oh himself in just a little bit, but you can pretty easily hear the influences of that bands like Queen, David Bowie, and other similar artists from that time. And combining that with like traditional sort of biwa music is really just a great creative choice. And not only do these songs just work on their own, but they really play a crucial role in the coming of age story between our two protagonists. All of it just an incredible combination.
It all just works. You would think, because we've seen movies that try to place more modern music in the past, and it's just kind of like, I'm sorry, what? It doesn't always work because it's such a change of tone that was not really hinted at to the viewers. There's definitely a lot of that because a lot of, like, I would assume like their approach to this was the biwa music and the no style theatrical performances were very much the rock stars of the day. Or at least that's what I would assume or take a guess at.
It feels like these sort of parallels were deliberate. It takes a filmmaker with the confidence that Yuasa has to really lean into drawing these parallels. And I thought he did a really good job. Now, once it ever feel distracting that the music sounded more modern, but it was still firmly set in a very specific era.
Right, because I guess for someone who wants to make a comparison, though I don't think there's really any filmmaker or director that you can compare this movie with, I guess you can try and say it's like a Baz Luhrmann film. And it's just kind of interesting and fitting in some ways because of Elvis that came out in. I don't think Baz would have the gusto to make it work.
I understand if some people are going to try to compare Yuasa to Baz Luhrmann, but I don't think Luhrmann is quite as emotionally grounded as Yuasa is. He can get a little bit too indulgent.
And not to say that Yuasa never has its moments of just like, all right, let's just go all out. Because, I mean, as we've been doing this podcast, you have now seen Ride Your Wave and Night is Short, Walk On Girl. And that latter film goes all out in the third act. But, like you said, there's still a grounded emotional hook to the whole story of these two wanting to help one another. And it's a really touching, like, first half. Like, this movie's only 90 minutes, which it's paced so well. And
it is.
I'm thinking, like, maybe this film could have worked at 2 hours, but I'm not sure it needed to be 2 hours. Like, I know there's this current debate going around of people arguing about, is it pacing or is it the length of the film that you're bothered by? Like, for me, it's pacing. Some films can feel like they go on forever when they're like only 80 minutes. Watch a bad comedy and you know what I mean. Or a film could be like 3 hours and it could just breeze on by. It's all how you execute it. And a lot of Inu-Oh's first half is all the story set up between the two because it's not just, oh, one day Tomona meets Inu-Oh. They've been building up their encounters for a few times. One when Tomona is still pretty young, and when he first meets Inu-Oh, like Inu-Oh himself is just being a punk,
a mischievous little creature.
Yeah, he doesn't want to cause harm to people, even though they try to set up some red herrings that maybe Inu-Oh was killing the biwa players that are mentioned throughout the first half. But he just wants to be accepted, be remembered, to do what everyone else is doing. And the best, or one of the best scenes of the movie is when Tomona, when he's more of a young adult, encounters Inu-Oh singing a soliloquy, which is on the soundtrack. That song is great. It's the first song you hear in the official teaser trailer for the film.
Oh, yeah. That's a great scene.
And how Inu-Oh vents to Tomona about, I can't be here. I can't perform like everyone else can because of my form and how I look. And the film does definitely talk about how society treats certain people with disabilities or of a certain origin or background. You shouldn't be shocked about that. Science Saru and Yuasa have shown to be a very progressive company. I mean, you only have to watch Japan Sings 2020 to realize that.
Oh, yeah.
They're not subtle about it.
Subtlety is for cowards.
No, it's like that's. I keep forgetting the name of that BBC comedy, like The Dark Side or something, where the guy goes like, I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards. That's basically Yuasa's kind of filmmaking. He's very upfront and very forward. And this movie is very horny. Like, this film has a lot of just sexual energy. But again, that never felt too distracting because it keeps you with these characters and they expand upon the characters. It's very like 70s rock and roll, where it's very like sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby, in some regards. Just like the movements, the energy that they give off.
And the crowd reactions. They don't show them too often, but every once in a while you will definitely see some ladies in the crowd swooning over the gods on the stage.
Right. Then the second half of the film is all about the rise of popularity of Inu-Oh and Tomona music and just like setting up all the stories, and the performances are great. There are 3 major performances in the film. There's the Burial of Arms, which is a great introduction to what the main goal of Tomona and Inu-Oh's plans are, of to tell the story of the people who died during the Heike clan war. Like, you can listen to the songs out of context, but their lyrics, when you translate them, are very dark, all about like how a bunch of people just died wanting to survive, and they're panicking and freaking out and asking for safety and something to save them, and they die. Like, there's a body count. A lot of people die in this movie. It shouldn't be more obvious than that than when at the beginning, when they are dumping those sacred treasures into the river, and they just have people tied to them. I know there's a cultural context to what they're doing. Then with the second one, there's the whale. One of the things that happens is with every new performance, a new dance, Inu-Oh loses the more cursed form that he has had with him for most of his life. And it's a great way to show progress within the story. I mean, it's almost to a degree like the Beauty and the Beast situation.
But more, instead of it being like one change towards the end of the film, it's a bit more gradual.
Right, like at the beginning, he's mostly known for his gourd mask that shows a misshapen face and an extremely long arm. After the first one, he gained back his mostly like normal torso. And then in the second performance, his back is restored to him. And then by the third one, it's mostly just his face. That a lot of people are now starting to wonder, what's behind the mask? Like, is he actually good looking? Is he a monster? And of course, Inu-Oh plays up that factor of, oh, behind this mask is a beautiful face. But even that beautiful face is itself a mask, which is like a great way to BS onlookers. And one of the also like small details that I love about this movie is how they perceive Tomona looking at the world, because he's blind, but everything around him is in this really cool pastel painted look, and it just looks great.
Oh, yeah. I love whenever disability is represented from a visual standpoint. It did kind of remind me a little bit of, remember that scene in the third episode of Dead End Paranormal Park where Norma is kind of visualizing her fear of the outside world?
Oh yeah, exactly.
This and that scene are like probably some of the best examples of an artist's visualization of disability.
Right, right. It reminds me of, I don't know if you remember Bombay Rose from last year.
Oh, yeah.
There was that one character whose entire world perspective was in black and white and seen in the past, even though the rest of the world is more modern. Like, it's very cool when you can see the different perspectives of characters in movies. And you can't quite do that in live action. That's why animation is such a beautiful format to make a film, because you can do so much that you cannot do or get away with easily with live action.
There's so many different like sub mediums. There's traditional hand drawn animation, there's CGI, there's stop motion. I'm not sure exactly how much CG was used in this movie, but the way it blends with traditional 2D animation in this is really well done. If there's any CG at all, there has to be.
Oh, no. No, there's a little CGI, especially like, during that setup for the third one where they're basically doing a drone shot of that whole castle area.
Oh.
And they're like passing by the people and such. I think that's one of the few spots where they use CGI. I guess we should talk about like the animation here is great. I mean, it's Science Saru. It's basically like their animation is always going to be good because of how they animate and execute art styles. Like they could do more grounded looks to like what everyone else is doing. Yeah, it's exactly boring if everyone was just doing the same thing. Even when like Studio Trigger did those two different Star Wars shorts for Star Wars Visions, even if I didn't like the second one, I give them kudos that they were doing something a little different, because it's not just that one style that defines Studio Trigger. But with Science Saru, they just do different little things with how they handle their anime, their films, and what have you. The art direction is handled by character designers Obutaka Ito and Taiyo Matsumoto, who, like on a collective whole, did work like not just on the same stuff, but like Giovanni's Island, Lou Over the Wall, The Night is Short Walk On Girl. And Taiyo Matsumoto was behind the art for Tenkanken Treat. You can definitely see his touches with these characters. Very rough looking, very unpolished. They are not like afraid to add like little details like to the skin or have like a sort of ugliness to all the characters to some regards. They're just not traditionally good looking.
That's kind of the point of Inu-Oh's personal journey, how starts off as this cursed creature, but then grows into his own as the film progresses.
The designs are all just great. Like Inu-Oh has a fantastic design, even when he's becoming more and more human looking. And that moment when he finally takes off the mask is so satisfying, because you never quite see what he looks like fully under the mask. Even during this one point where you find out exactly what happened to him, you don't see everything. And that's the point. Like Inu-Oh is actually based off of a real person. But since there is so little information about him, they took liberties and privilege with how to approach this story. I like his design, like when he finally becomes like fully human and such. And I like Tomona's constant long hair and then putting on makeup and such, being more flamboyant. And like it's a very non-traditional macho male designs. And that goes along with the other characters, which there aren't that many. There's the old biwa player Tomona meets when he's a kid, and the no performer from the beginning of the film and in the end when you find out his connection with Inu-Oh, and the person in charge of Japan itself who wants to combine this north and south of Japan.
Lord Ashikaga.
Yeah. It's like, no, they're not like super monstrous looking. But that's kind of the thing. Real monsters, like in real life, aren't like demons with horns and such. They're real people. Those last two are just despicable characters. Like everyone's very straightforward, but that works more for the film than you would think it doesn't. But these two, like the performer who you find out was Inu-Oh's dad, who was just like, I gotta get better, I gotta be the best performer. And he gives up Inu-Oh's like basically perfect human innocence. And when he is birthed, becomes this like cursed figure. And it just like we're not short on a list of worst dads in anime and in film, but this dad sucks.
Yeah, basically he made a deal with the devil that went all sorts of wrong for him, especially.
It was so amusing because I was wondering how they were going to solve this. And even the quote unquote devil was just like, you're giving me your son that you already gave me. And he's like, nah, I think I'm going to pop you like a blood filled balloon and your son's going to keep on living. Like when the demons have had enough of your human greed, that's saying something.
By the way, how great is the design of demon creature who makes this deal with the father?
Oh, such a great that purple design with the sunken eyes. And how there's like no real shape. It's just the mask. Which of course is the point. You don't need it.
Exactly.
And it's just an outside force. And I don't really care if there is an actual like origin or not. I know some people are going to be like, so this guy just had a magical mask sitting around, and it's just like, yes, now be quiet. Eat some popcorn. But the Lord is just the worst kind of person. He doesn't like that these new stories are being to what's going on coming out. And he just brutally ends Inu-Oh and Tomona's journey. And just that moment at the end where Tomona is talking with the Lord, and the Lord's just like, you will not see that biwa player again. You will not sing your song, and you will only sing from this specific list of tunes. Like you could tell Inu-Oh is mad. He does not like that the Lord is censoring his life, his history, his journey. And yet Inu-Oh, because he doesn't want his friend to die, is like, sure, I won't see him again. I won't even sing those songs again. It's very sad what happens. And just what happens to Tomona. Ugh. It's like, maybe if people wanted, they could have maybe made the transition from Inu-Oh finally becoming fully human and then the downfall happening, like pace out a little more. But like you get the point.
I honestly don't think it would have been as effective if they stretched out the in-between between Inu-Oh discovering himself and Tomona's downfall. That ending wouldn't have hit as hard if they dragged that on for too long.
But that ending is great. At first it ends kind of like every other typical biopic drama that comes up around award season, where it ends with like a black background with white text talking about, and this is what happened after the movie happens. And it's a shame. Like the whole point of this movie was to bring back memories and stories of the forgotten, only for the forgotten to be lost to time. And yet at the end, the two find each other and their friendship is like reignited. And it's just a sweet ending. I had a intensely emotional reaction to the ending of this movie. And I can't say that with a lot of movies I see, even with like a lot of the good Pixar stuff. I don't have such an emotional explosion like I do with this film.
I didn't have as visceral of emotion towards like the very end when the two are reunited, but just the more I think about it and the more I understand like the significance of their friendship, that's what's making it hit a lot harder.
And the performances from this movie are great. Our main ones are, like we've said, Mira Moriyama, who plays Tomona, and Avu-chan, who plays Inu-Oh, and she's great. I'm not entirely sure if this is her first performance, like theatrical lead performance, but she brings so much life to Inu-Oh, and just like this confidence, this free flowing joy to the character living, and her singing is great. The way she executes every lyric, it's perfect.
I looked up her Wikipedia page, and she does play Xenon in Devilman Crybaby, and she's been on stage a couple times. She was involved in productions for the Rocky Horror Show and Hedwig and the Angry Itch, which I think is just fitting.
Well, it's funny because if you went to see Bullet Train and heard the cover of Staying Alive,
that's Queen Bee.
Yeah, that's her. And everyone else does a great job. Like the Lord character is very passively slimy and conniving, just very calm and collective. And it just makes you want to strangle that person, figuratively, the character. What else is there with this movie? It's everything. Like, I'll read my closing paragraph to this movie. There will never be enough words to describe the experience of watching a film like Inu-Oh. It's a fantastic experience. It's magical. It's a political drama. It's a sharp-edged social commentary. It's a bombastic stadium rock opera. It's a grand-scale epic. It's a small-scale, emotionally driven human story. It's an LGBTQ plus infused journey of two souls looking to tell the stories of the forgotten. And it's a condensed cinematic journey that could only come from Masaaki Yuasa.
I don't know if I can even top that. Even like the brief smattering of words that I jotted down on my own Letterboxd review barely do this film justice. At the end of the day, you really just have to see this for yourself. Considering this is, at least for the foreseeable future, Masaaki Yuasa's final theatrical film, what a way to go out.
Yeah, not many get to do that, where they get to make a movie just as good as like their first film. It's just a wild ride. And Yuasa deserves the break. He's been busy ever since 2017. I mean, golly, Devilman Crybaby, Japan Sinks, Ride Your Wave, his 2 movies, and then just all of the anime that his studio is doing and is now under new leadership. But they are still like going to be putting out some primo stuff. Like they have the sequel to Tatami Galaxy coming out, and they also have a new Naoko Yamada project in the works, which is another anime series. Though I hope to see Naoko Yamada go back to making films, but that's beside the point. This is everything that you should love and adore with not just film and not just animation, but just with art. And I know that sounds so pretentious, and I'm usually not that kind of person, but
for a film like this, I think a little pretension won't hurt.
It's a cinematic journey through the making of art on screen. It just shows you what kind of creative adventures filmmakers can take you on. It's a film that's firing on all cylinders. It spits in the face of everyone who looks down on animation. When Spielberg knows how great the art form of animation is, then that's saying something of how actually important it is, and how at this point in time when this was recording, if you can see Inu-Oh, please do. Already hearing some stories that some people were like the only ones in the theater is heartbreaking, because a lot of you will go see any of those franchise films that come out. Y'all are probably going to go see that Dragon Ball Super superhero film, and that movie's already going to make a stupid amount of money. It's Dragon Ball. Go see this film. Don't go hate watch something. Don't go see something that you know is going to be in the theaters for a few weeks. You have to, if possible, go see stuff like this. But it's also frustrating because G Kids teams up with Fathom Events, and this is definitely a much bigger release than something like The Deer King or Fortune Favors Lady Nikuko, but it still feels like it's much smaller than it should be for a big name like Masaaki Yuasa. Please try to see this movie, even if you have to wait and see it when it comes out on Blu-ray. Just go watch this movie. I'm not usually one to say, oh, this is my favorite film of the year so far, but this is my favorite film of the year so far. I don't see any other film topping Inu-Oh.
Me neither. This usually happens every time I watch something from Masaaki Yuasa. It just, the bar goes from like a 10 to a 20, and nothing else can even compare. With that in mind, please, 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 please go seek this out if it's playing near you. I promise whether you love or hate this is up to you, but you're going to experience something unique.
And that's what we have for right now. That we just wanted to get this review out quickly, just so we didn't have to wait until the end of August to talk about it.
What you're about to listen to next is our rundown of the summer anime season, which it is a season, but more on that later. For now, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. If you see my work and you enjoy it and want to send some support my way, that's one way to do it.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow all of our Facebook activities at facebook.com/RenPopCulture. Follow us on Twitter at RenPopCulture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.